Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the Partnership for Food Safety Education. The partnership is a nonprofit that provides free educational materials and resources on how to prevent food poisoning and practice safe food handling. And I have Leslie with me here today.
Yes. Hi, I am Chef Leslie. Thank you for joining us tonight. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and out of all the things I do, cooking with kids is one of my favorites. They learn so much while they're cooking. It teaches them food safety, nutrition, math, science, and it helps their fine motor skills. Plus, cooking is a great outlet for kids and their creative imaginations. And speaking of skills, learning to cook is something they'll use throughout their entire life. A study from the Journal of Nutrition, Education, and Behavior suggests that developing cooking skills while they're young may have long term benefits in both health and nutrition into adulthood. Confidence in the kitchen can lead to fewer fast food meals, more meals as a family, and more frequent preparation of vegetables when they become adults. Before starting in the kitchen, it's best to have a few rules in place for kids. This helps prevent injuries and lays the groundwork for food safety. And in fact, both kids and adults should follow these every time. Make sure you pull back long hair. Don't lick your fingers. Rinse fresh fruits and vegetables under running water. Be sure to wash cutting boards, dishes, utensils, and countertops with soapy water after preparing each item and before moving on to the next one. Make sure that raw meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs stay separate from cooked and ready to eat foods. Use a food thermometer to check that food is cooked to the proper temperature, and refrigerate leftovers promptly to 40 degrees or lower. Katie, you have kids. Do you have any rules at your house?
Yeah, so I have two sons, and they're 6 and 8. And our number one rule is always wash your hands before preparing food. That's the thing that we stress the most. But some other rules we have are not to open the oven or use the stovetop without an adult, and not to eat raw cookie dough.
Right, those are important things. And when you're in the kitchen with your kids, what kinds of tasks do you give them to do?
Well, that depends on how helpful they feel like being that day, but usually they like to help with things like measuring and adding ingredients and peeling fruits and vegetables and stirring things like batter, especially cookie dough.
Well, we've also can do besides, peeling vegetables is they can chop soft vegetables like tomatoes or zucchini. They can use can openers. Whisking is always ever popular, although occasionally messy. And of course, using a food thermometer. Kids in elementary school, like Katie's kids, are capable of assembling sandwiches and putting together simple meals like breakfast and lunch. By the time they're in middle and high school, kids don't need as much adult supervision. If they're just learning to cook, start with simple tasks and move up from there. Tweens and teens can cook items on the stove like pasta, eggs, and soup. They can bake or roast things in the oven. They can prepare foods in the microwave. They can bake cookies, cakes, and desserts. They can use sharp knives and even plan and prepare a family meal. I may be a chef now, but I don't come from a cooking family. But by the time I was in middle school, I learned how to make spaghetti with meat sauce and that most standard of Midwestern meals, sloppy joes.
That sounds great. I'd be so excited if my kids would make their own lunches every day instead of me doing it.
Well, funny you should mention lunch. There's 2 weeks left in the partnership's Young Cook Recipe Challenge. Recipes don't have to be for school, they can be for home too. And lunch is a lot more than sandwiches these days, although I am never one to turn down a fancy sandwich. In fact, the combination of sandwiches alone are endless. You can use wraps, naan, tortillas, pitas, bread, and even lettuce. And those are just the outside of the sandwich options. The pictures that you're seeing are some of the recipes that were submitted in last year's 30-Minute Meals Safe Recipe Contest. Those were dinner recipes, and we're looking for lunch this year. But you can see they're not very complicated, and uncomplicated recipes work best. They're also the type of recipes kids love. Simple meals made with delicious ingredients. Besides sandwiches, other things kids can easily create are salads. They can use ingredients like lettuce, pasta, rice, or lentils as a base and build up from there. Grain bowls, noodle bowls, and rice bowls are all incredibly popular right now, and they're so versatile. They're also great for using up those small amounts of ingredients you have left in your kitchen. That makes your grocery budget, go farther. When you're working with kids in the kitchen, it can be a little overwhelming to know where to start. I usually recommend starting with one or two of their favorite meals and look for inspiration from there. Ask them to add a twist of their own to a dish they already love. Or they can take two of their favorite dishes and combine them into one, like, say, pizza and pasta. When I was a kid, French bread pizzas were big for Saturday lunch. I still make them from time to time, but I use store-bought whole wheat baguettes and my own ingredients and then add a twist or two. Now, sometimes kids want their favorite things to remain unchanged, but they're open to brand new things. You can pick a region or a new country and go from there. Tex-Mex flavors, Asian-inspired, and Mediterranean ingredients are all great places to start. You can also do an online search for what do kids eat for lunch in, and then fill in a place that they've studied recently or they've expressed interest in. Lunch is a diverse meal. Think about all the different restaurants that serve lunch and what they make. Katie, what are some of favorites at your house?
So one of my oldest son's favorite things to make is what he calls a quesadilla pizza. And all it is a tortilla with barbecue sauce. He really likes barbecue and pizza ingredients on top. And his favorite is pepperoni. But we also encourage him to add other ingredients, things like peppers or olives or fruits and vegetables. I know not everyone likes pineapple, but we do. We want him to make it healthier and have a little bit more variety when he makes it.
Right. So making healthy substitutions with ingredients is a smart choice when cooking with kids. Substituting whole grains and adding vegetables are great. For the recipe challenge, young chefs are asked to include only two of the following: a fruit, a vegetable, a whole grain, or a lean protein. Just two of those list of 4 ingredients. My client's son often requests my burgers and my vegetarian pasta bolognese in his lunch. The burger is made with lean turkey, beans, and vegetables, and the bolognese is just a fancy way of saying pasta with a slow-cooked sauce. He loves it because it's delicious, but his mom likes it because it's plant-based. Now remember, there's only 2 weeks left in the Young Cooks Recipe Challenge. Super soups, whole grain noodles, brown rice bowls, chilies, veggie wraps, quesadillas, fajita bowls, and burritos are all needed. We're looking for all kinds of recipes. Finalists will get to see their recipes in an online cookbook that's designed just for kids in the kitchen, and winners will receive gift cards. Now, we're going to open it up to questions and comments. I'd love to know more about what your favorite things are to make with kids. So let's see. Do we have any questions?
Leslie, I have a question. What are some ways to get kids to eat more fruits and vegetables?
Okay. Right. So that's a great question. And there are a number of things that I suggest. Now, this may not be popular, is to eat more vegetables yourself. Mm-hmm. The second way you can do it is to let kids get involved, not just with the cooking, but with planning the family meal. Even, if they're not cooking, they can still help plan. When they ask that question, what's for dinner, tell them what you're having, and then let them have input in terms of what vegetables or sides you're going to serve for dinner that night. If your kids are little, you can give them a choice by saying things like, we're having chicken. Would you like green beans or cucumber with that? My third tip is sometimes kids don't like vegetables because of the texture. And this can be especially true with toddlers or young kids. And that's maybe when you have to get a little bit sneaky. You take those vegetables and you blend them up. You can add them to any kind of sauce. They're great in pasta sauces. Or with something like spinach, you can add it into smoothies. I also use blended up white beans, meaning kidney beans, northern beans, navy beans, to thicken soups and sauces instead of using flour. I hope that's helpful.
Those are some really creative ideas, Leslie. I have another question. Since I have 2 kids, I'm wondering, for people that have 2 kids, can they both enter the contest?
So when it comes to the Young Cooks Recipe Challenge, they can go a couple of different ways. We're looking for kids who 1st through 12th grade, and they can either enter a recipe individually, or they can enter a recipe as a family. It can be a family activity. So if you have 2 kids and they both want to make the same thing, they can make it together and enter together. If they want to make something different, then they can each enter their own recipe. Do we have any other? No?
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, Leslie.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm here to answer all of your food and cooking questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. And if you're catching this, but it's not live, you can add #replay in the comments. And if you have questions, you can add those in the comments as well. We're happy to answer them. Katie's going to drop the link about the Young Cooks Recipe Challenge there as well. Hopefully, we've inspired you to get into the kitchen with your favorite young chefs and maybe even enter a recipe too in the challenge. We love seeing the submissions and we look forward to seeing more. Thank you very much and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Leslie. Good night, everyone.
Good night.